Travis Scott is one of the biggest names in hip-hop. So big, he started his own label. That label, of course, being Cactus Jack. Travis Scott first began Cactus Jack label in 2017 when he first signed Smoke Perp. However, this was short-lived and Smoke Perp had been dropped from the label sometime in 2019. Although I will say, Smoke Perp was able to secure the Travis Scott feature with the song Fingers Blue on his debut album, Dead Star. Then in 2018, Travis Scott signed Sheck Wes under a joint deal with Good Music and Interscope Records. Just to refresh your mind, during this time Sheck Wes was signed, he had a huge hit in Mo Bamba, and at the time had a ton of leverage, hence why I think he got the joint deal. However, Sheck Wes would still be under the Cactus Jack umbrella. Sheck Wes then released his debut and only album at this point, Mud Boy, in fall 2018. Sheck Wes has released several singles since then, but not one has been able to gain nearly as much attention as Mo Bamba did. Now, so far Travis Scott seems to be 0 for 2 on successful artists. However, Travis Scott would release onto the world his newest artist and star in the making. Travis Scott announced the world of his Cactus Jack signee Don Toliver with the song Can't Say on Astroworld. This song was a massive success for both Travis Scott and Don Toliver. Don Toliver did have one project released before signing with Cactus Jack, however it never gained a ton of traction. With the feature on Astroworld though, Don Toliver absolutely killed it, and it only helped the hype he began for a new Don Toliver project. We didn't hear anything new from the Cactus Jack label for over a year after the Sheck Wes album in fall 2018. Then in December 2019, Travis Scott announced we'd be getting a collaboration project from all of the label members. And on December 27th, 2019, Jack Boys was released and had hits like Gang Gang, Out West, and Gotti. However, this may have been the peak of the Cactus Jack label, but I may be getting ahead of myself. Don Toliver would then release his debut album, Heaven or Hell, in March 2020. This album was another massive success for Cactus Jack and Don Toliver. Heaven or Hell had hits like Cardigan, After Party, and No Idea, along with many more. Don Toliver took what he gained from the Can't Say feature and absolutely delivered with a great album. However, from this point, Cactus Jack was never able to reach the same level it was at in 2020. Everything seems to go downhill. 2021 comes around and Travis Scott had teased that his highly anticipated album Utopia would be coming in 2021. However, that never came. In 2021, we saw a new Cactus Jack member, that being Sofago. Sofago signed in February 2021 and was a bit of a different signing for Cactus Jack. Sofago had already gained a decent fan base and had a good following online. At the time, Sofago's signing with Cactus Jack seemed like an absolute no-brainer. Travis Scott is, and at the time was, one of the biggest names in hip-hop and should know exactly what to do for Sofago to help him take that next step. Unfortunately, so far that has not happened. I'd like to mention that in the fall of 2021, Don Toliver did release his second album, Life of a Don. This album was not bad by any means, but it didn't seem to have the same effect that Heaven or Hell did. Life of a Don felt a bit rushed and wasn't what everyone wanted from Don Toliver. Then, the Astroworld tragedy. I've talked about this multiple times before, but it may have been the nail in the coffin for Cactus Jack. Travis Scott had his annual Astroworld festival and people died, and it put a huge tarnish on both Cactus Jack and Travis Scott as a whole. This of course didn't help Sofago either, who had been teasing his new album Pink Hearts since signing with Cactus Jack. The Astroworld tragedy only amplified the problems that were rising with the Cactus Jack label. Throughout all of 2022, we didn't see one Cactus Jack member release an album until November of 2022. That of course being Sofago's Pink Hearts, which I've talked about before on how he had disappointed fans with that album. But to sum it up, because of the Astroworld tragedy, I'm sure Sofago's album was put on hold until everything blew over. I'm not saying Cactus Jack is wrong for doing this. I'd probably do the same thing, however, that doesn't change the fact that it didn't help Sofago at all having to wait that long to release. In February 2023, Don Toliver released his third album, Lovesick. And once again, Don Toliver seemed to have a bit of a lackluster album. Don Toliver just wasn't able to capture that same vibe he had with Heaven or Hell. And here we are now. Cactus Jack label is at the lowest it's ever been. It seems like every artist on the label is somehow in decline. Except for Travis Scott, but he's kind of the exception because he's the leader of the group. Travis Scott did announce at the NBA All-Star Weekend that Utopia would be coming soon, but first we'd need to see a new Sheck Wes album, a new Sofego EP, and then Utopia. However, with the rumors that Travis Scott is releasing Utopia in June, I don't see Sheck Wes releasing an album soon. Although I could be wrong, there still is plenty of time. Side note, is anyone excited for a new Sheck Wes album? I genuinely am curious as to the amount of people who actually are gonna care or tune into a Sheck Wes album. This is no hate or disrespect to Sheck Wes, but I genuinely just don't think he's got that hype that he has anymore. I mean, I don't think that's outlandish to say, but he might just be a one-hit wonder. So that's my take on Sheck Wes currently, I guess. With Sofego, his hype is for sure at the lowest it's ever been. He just released 2 new snippets, and people were basically unanimously clowning him. I would like to say that Travis Scott is a powerful figure in hip-hop, that if Utopia exceeds expectations, Cactus Jack could be right back to where it was in 2020. Especially if Sheck Wes, Don Toliver, and Sofego all have features on Utopia. But another important thing to the feature thing, Don Toliver absolutely killed his feature on Can't Say with Astroworld. So with Utopia, if they do get featured, that is if their feature is good enough, they have to kill it. They can't just be a notable feature, oh yeah, his feature was good. No, it needs to be who is this guy? I need to check out his music because he was so fire on this feature that I need to know if he has other music that I would enjoy. That is how I felt when I heard Don Toliver on Can't Say. So I would like to see at least Sofego be able to reach that mark. I wouldn't be mad if Don Toliver didn't have a fire feature because he's already had many features now with Travis Scott throughout his albums and Travis Scott's albums. Also, another side note, how has Don Toliver released 3 full-length albums in the time that Travis Scott hasn't released 1 solo album? That's crazy to think about. His own artist has released 3 whole albums and he hasn't released 1. That's wild. So as much as I like all 3 Cactus Jack members, I can't help but think that their future is sort of in the hands of Travis Scott. And I think it's safe to say if Utopia is lackluster or doesn't exceed expectations, or even meet expectations, Cactus Jack as a whole could be done. But I'm sure Travis Scott is very aware of this and knows just how important Utopia is to not only his career, but his label members' careers as well. Cactus Jack currently is not in a great place, and could be in an even worse place if Utopia isn't up to expectations. However, if Utopia is just as impactful as Astroworld was, I think Cactus Jack will be just fine. Let me know what you think about Cactus Jack currently. Also, let me know about the side notes that I had there about Sheck Wes and Don Toliver. Let me know what you think about that. Do you think that Utopia will be able to be a good rebound for all of the Cactus Jack members, that is if they're featured and they all kill their features? Let me know what you think in the comments, and thanks for watching.